So, all right, well, just thanks for being here. It's good to see everybody again. And just kind of wrapping up the Rice game, I thought it was a good bounce-back win. Lots of positives. Offense, first drive, we punted. After that, I think we scored 5 consecutive times. 6 if you count the fumble. Red zone, we were there 4 times. We scored 4 touchdowns. So a lot of the issues we had, I think, improved. Defensively, very encouraging. The first 3 times that they had the football, we had 3 and outs. We got 3 turnovers, which resulted in 21 points. We had 2 defensive scores, and we got to play a lot of people, which was really good. I don't like the way we let up in the second half on defense. We got some younger guys in there, and the standard can't drop. And we tell the backups they got to prepare like starters, so when they go in there, the level of play doesn't fall off. And I thought in the second half, when our 2s went in there, the level of play clearly fell off. And offensively, we slowed things down. I didn't want to run a bunch of plays in the second half, so we slowed the tempo down. We tried to take off clock, and as a result, it was the fewest number of plays we played this year on both sides of the football. So it was a win, and I think our kids needed that. It was 2 tough weeks there, and and now we finished the non-conference schedule 3-1, and now we've got 7 straight ACC games, and it starts out with one of the elite programs in the country right now, Clemson. As you all know, they're 5-0. Coach Sweeney and his staff have arguably built one of the top 2 or 3 programs in the country over the last 4 or 5 years. Every year they graduate players and they just reload. This year's no different. Defensively, it starts with their down linemen. They've got 4 down linemen that I was hoping all 4 of those guys would declare last year, and it was kind of like when Chubb and Landry decided to come back. You're thinking there's no way all 4 of them are coming back, and they all come back. And what's scary is even after those 4, they've got good players. I mean, they are good. They've got depth. These kids play extremely hard. They're talented, and they play with a great motor. And they're able to do that because they have depth, and they can roll guys in there. But even watching these guys on PAT field goal block, which a lot of times if you're ever going to take a rep off, just watching how hard Wilkins and Lawrence and Bryant and Farrell and these guys go. And then they've got guys behind them that flash. Certainly the Xavier Thomas kid showed some real explosiveness against Syracuse and had a great sack. Justin Foster's a kid from North Carolina that we tried to recruit very heavily. And so they're really good up front. Their linebackers can run. They were one of the few teams last year that didn't have to play nickel against us, and they got away with it because they could cover us. The secondary is always good. They're giving up 263 yards a game, which is second in the ACC, and they're giving up under 17 points a game. Offensively, right now, they're the best in the ACC. They're close to 500 yards a game, 38 points. What other program in the country? So the guy that played the second half for them the other day was 4th string in the spring. And he went in there and just did what he had to do. I mean, he made plays with his feet. He threw an absolute dart on a 4th and 6 that really allowed them to win the game. And it's scary when you think about it. He, out of the spring, probably was 4th. And then they had a transfer and another transfer. Now he's 2nd, and he could go in. And, I mean, Clemson was down by 2 scores in the 4th quarter and found a way to win. And, so whoever their quarterback is, whether it's Lawrence or Bryce, they're in really good shape. The offensive line, I think, has improved every year. Certainly Hyatt is one of the best tackles in the country. But both tackles are really good. The guards and center is physical. Running back, they have depth. Antonin, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his last name or not. And if it's not, I apologize to him, because I thought a year ago that he might be their best running back as a freshman, and he's just gotten better and better. He's elusive, he's fast. He's already run for 600 yards, 8 touchdowns, and averages over 8 yards per carry. And then Feaster is an outstanding back as well. And then at receiver, they're loaded. I mean, they play 9 guys. And, you know, they have Rodgers and Higgins and Renfro, and those guys are, you know, the best of the best in the ACC. But there's 6 other guys they can play, and there's not a big drop-off. And, you know, like I said about the quarterback position, that they're in great shape. So, again, we're playing one of the best teams in the country this week. We've tried not to talk too much about them, Clemson, in our meetings. Our focus is us getting better. I do think we improved from Notre Dame to Rice. I don't think it was just our execution level was much better against Rice. Forget who the opponent was. I know that, you know, Rice doesn't have the personnel that Notre Dame has. I just thought our execution was better. Our assignments are better. Our alignments were better, and that allowed us to execute. And we've got to do the same thing this week. And again, because of the personnel, it becomes a taller challenge, but we have no effect on that. We can just affect our preparation and have a great week of practice. And you know, we had a good practice today, and I'm anxious to get back out there tomorrow. But this is, you know, this is a great challenge, but we're looking forward to it.
You mentioned fewest snaps on both sides of the ball. How encouraging is that, given how many snaps some of the guys like Greg George were taking on offense?
I mean, it's really encouraging. You know, and I slowed it down on purpose in the second half. We had a big lead. We have some depth issues. Ryan Smenda couldn't play. I did not want our defensive players getting a lot of reps, and it probably hurt our offensive production in the second half. But with that size lead, I didn't care. I wanted to snap the ball with 5 seconds left. I wanted to shorten the game. I did not want Zeke Rodney and Willie Yarberry and Justin Sternod or DJ Taylor or any of our corners to play any more snaps than they had to. We've played a lot of snaps of football this year, and part of it is we do it to ourselves. We are up-tempo. We run a lot of snaps. That causes us to play a lot more defense. But with that lead, I just wanted to play slow. And I think we played – nobody on offense, I don't think, played more than 54 or 51 snaps. And on defense, I think the highest pitch counts were somewhere in the 50 as well. And it's a long year, and I think that'll help us.
Obviously, Clemson faced another kind of up-tempo offensive team last week in Syracuse. Do they have an advantage because they played a team like that in successive weeks? Or do you and your team maybe have an advantage because you get to see how they defend that type of up-tempo offense?
No, I think the advantage that Clemson creates is their depth. That a lot of the reasons that you go up-tempo is you try to run a lot of plays and wear people down. When we play the Clemsons of the world and the Notre Dames of the world, that they have so much depth and can go too deep. And when they're playing their twos, they're still really, really talented. If they're able to sub, the tempo helps you less because they're fresh. That you end up wearing yourself down and they're fresh. So it's really important that we play fast so that they can't sub or we catch them with 12 guys on the field. And that's the one thing that Notre Dame was able to do. I mean, Notre Dame would make wholesale changes on their defense and stayed fresh. And Clemson, with their depth, can do the same thing. I mean, Clemson, the one thing they do is they play a lot of people. They play 9 receivers. They have a rotation at running back. They even have a rotation inside on the offensive line. On defense, they'll play 8 defensive linemen. They'll play 3 or 4 corners, 3 or 4 safeties. And I think that is probably the advantage they have is, unlike most teams that we play, if we can get to their twos, they're not as good as their ones. The Clemsons, the Notre Dames, traditionally the Florida States, the drop-off that they get to their twos is minimal compared to the majority of the rest of our schedule.
Historically speaking, that NC State line you referenced had all its starters drafted. I think they're the third team to have that happen. All these guys, as you kind of noted, could potentially even be first and second round draft picks.
They're all going to be drafted. I believe all these guys had draft grades, and they're only going to get better.
So is this the best D-line you think you've had?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, NC State's D-line last year was really good. This defensive line is really, really good. Florida State 2 and 3 years ago had a D-line that was really good. I mean, I don't like to get caught up in the superlatives of this is the best ever. I wish they weren't all there. Okay, when you watch the tape, you know, we have an ID for a guy that, you know, a lot of teams will have that 1 or 2 players. Like when you played BC a year ago, you'd say Landry and Zach Allen are poison. You better do something with those 2, and you kind of hope you can hold up in other spots. NC State last year, Clemson this year, poison, 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 poison. I mean, pick your poison. All 4 of these guys can win a one-on-one pass matchup. I mean, I think they're averaging 10 TFLs a game. They don't have to pressure. They get pressure with a 3-man rush. I mean, their sack at the end of the game, they had their backup defensive end and they rushed 3 and they sack them for -8. So they're really, really good.
You mentioned, though, that this offensive line might be one of the best lines you've had since coming to Wake. Considering what you were able to do against State last year, how are you feeling about this group facing the challenge it has this week?
I mean, it's a challenge. I mean, in last year against these guys, I thought we played okay, not great. Against NC State last year, we played really well. So we've played against good defensive lines before, but I think Clemson last year after our game was really upset with their D-line. I remember late in the year when they were in the playoffs that they thought the turning point in their season was after the Wake game. They were so upset how they played against Wake Forest that they were not happy and made a commitment, and that was a big article. So we're not going to catch them by surprise. I think they know we have a good O-line, but we certainly respect the heck out of their D-line. I mean, these guys deserve all their accolades. They're every bit what they're advertised to be.
You seen a difference in your defense's confidence level in the past couple days?
Yes. I mean, the one thing, one of the real important goals that we had last week is quite simply we had a goal of a 95% alignment grade. That if we could just be aligned in the right defense and have everybody playing the right defense 95% of the time, we thought that we would have a chance to play better. And we did it. I think we graded out at 97%, which from the week before would have been up from somewhere in the 50s. So that was just the #1 goal is let's get the defense called, let's get aligned, let's have all 11 guys playing the defense. And it's baby steps. But that was a step forward. And when you play a team like Clemson, even if you do get aligned, it's not easy. Just because you get aligned, I mean, there's still matchup issues. I mean, you name it. I mean, Higgins, Rogers, Renfro, Overton, then the running backs, and this quarterback. I mean, this kid can throw the ball in tight windows with great velocity. And then Bryce goes in there and he throws a dart. We can line up perfectly against these guys, and it's still a challenge. But at least you give yourself a shot. And last week, we gave ourselves a chance by getting aligned. Now, in the second half, we missed some tackles. We didn't handle some of their unbalanced sets. Maybe the way we'd like to, we maybe misfit a play or two that gave them a big play. But I do think, again, our players they're smart. I mean, they know that from Rice to Clemson is a step up. But their assignment grades and alignment grades and all those things, we at least played with our cleats in the ground when the ball was snapped, which is a good first step. And now you have to do that this week just to have any chance at all.
What could your team have learned from 2 weeks ago against Notre Dame, another top 10 game coming into Winston? Yeah,
if you don't get aligned, you have no shot. I mean, Sam Hartman learned that you have to run the offense no matter who you play. You can't play, Rice and run it, and then Notre Dame and Clemson and not run it. If anything, the penalty for not doing it against those teams is going to be greater. And so I think last week was just about, okay, let's execute our offense and our defense. Forget who the opponent is. And this week it's really no different. Now it's a little harder because, I mean, our kids know who's coming in, but you have to somehow eliminate that and make sure you're lining up and knowing your job and doing your job to the best of your ability. Because if you don't do that, you got no shot at all.
You say they know who's coming in, but at the same time, right now, the main focus is on your own team getting better. How do you balance that? I mean, you've spoke many times about kids come to Wake Forest for these type of games. So how do you balance that as a coach, getting them?
Well, the only chance to have success in these type of games is to know your job and do your job. So your goal of playing in these games of national television, nationally ranked teams, like that's going to happen every year no matter what, because they're always on the schedule. So do you just want to play in these games, or do you want to play well in them?
Do you want to win them?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, playing well gives you a chance to win them. And step one to playing well is getting aligned correctly and knowing what your job is.
Charlie Bryant's transfer last week created a national conversation about transfers and the new rule. Just how fine is that line between wanting to do what's best for your kid while also wanting to retain depth and retain good players?
You know what? I mean, as coaches, we were for the rule. I still like the rule. I think it's a good rule. You just, you know, the quarterback position's always tricky. You know, I think generally speaking, you know, like we would like to play 6 receivers. And if you're our 7th or 8th receiver and you're not getting time and football is so important to you that you want to go somewhere else, then we'll support that. Clemson plays 9 receivers. I'm sure they've got their older guys that they play most of the snaps, but they're giving everybody reps. The quarterback position's always tricky. And again, as coaches, we were for the rule. There's a lot of advantages to it, and I think there's advantages for the players. And every kid's got to make his own decision, and every situation's unique, and I don't know everything that was going on down there, but he's certainly not alone. I think there's 12 to 15 players nationally that have done that.
Looking at your defense, again, just another aspect of confidence. How big was it for Chuck Wade to get that pick 6, and really how have you seen him develop now that the season's underway?
I think it helped his confidence a lot. I think the play Zeke Rodney made on the fumble that Asang Bassi recovered and scored helped. I think the play Luke Masterson made helped. We wanted to defend the pass better. We did that. Now we gave up. You know, you plug one leak and another one springs, but that's football. So our secondary played better, and I was really happy for Chuck. I said, man, you haven't seen the end zone since Louisville last year. And he's like, yeah, Coach, it's been a while. So I was really happy for him. You know, Chuck's a very, very unselfish player. And that move he made, I mean, there's a starting receiver who went to defense for 1 year because he knew he had depth issues and he did what was best for the team. So big Chuck Wade fan. The transition for him, I think, has been harder than he thought, but he keeps working and grinding and studying film, and he's given us everything he has, and we love him for it.
Has it been harder than you thought?
No, I knew it would be hard. I mean, playing safety I think playing safety might be one of the hardest positions on defense to play. I mean, you're making all the checks, and your fit changes, and the coverage changes, and it's 3-by-1, it's 2-by-2, it's fib, it's empty, you're fitting here. It's a very instinctive position. And when you're trained as a receiver, that you know what the play is, you know what the route is, and you go execute it, and then you go to defense, and all the variables like that can change. You know, the back is strong, the yo is weak. All those things affect where they fit, and the goal is just to get them more comfortable and better every week. You know, we've had a couple things happen. We've had some injuries back there. We didn't necessarily think Jesse was going to leave after last year, and he's a team-first guy, and he stepped up for us. So we're going to rock and roll with him and get him better, and he's improving.